everyone, welcome to Ecoholics. In our previous video, we have discussed about the learner's index of monopoly power. In this video, we are going to study about the cross elasticity of demand as a measure of monopoly power. So, let's get started. Now, before understanding the cross elasticity of demand as a measure of monopoly power, let's first understand what cross elasticity of demand means. What our definition states. So, it states that the proportionate change in the quantity demanded of a product as a result of proportionate change in the price of another product. So what simply it means is, it simply states that how the quantity demanded is going to change when price of other product changes. Which means that, let's say if there is a firm A. So how is the quantity demanded of this firm A going to change because of the change in the price of other product or the products of other firms? So now we can mathematically represent cross elasticity of demand in the following manner. So, the cross elasticity of demand how can we write the cross elasticity of demand? So, this will be given as delta Qi upon Qi whole divided by delta Pj upon Pj. Where what we can say is, we have two firms I and J. So, when there is change in price in firm J, how is it going to affect the quantity demanded of firm I? So, this is how we represent cross elasticity of demand. Now, coming on to cross elasticity of demand as a measure of monopoly power. So, cross elasticity of demand as a measure of monopoly power was first of all suggested by Kaldor, and then it was popularized by Triffin in his book Value Theory and General Equilibrium Analysis. So, let's now look at the cross elasticity of demand as a measure of monopoly power. Now, we have two cases. So, these are the two extreme cases. So, first we have perfect competition and second we have monopoly. Now, let's look at each case separately. So, in case of perfect competition, the products are homogeneous. And obviously, they are perfect substitutes. So, the products are perfect substitutes of each other. Now, what happens in case of perfect competition? Let's say if a firm lowers the price of his product, then what happens is, he will attract all the customers of the rival firms, or we can say other firms. Then what happens to the demand of his rival? So, when a firm reduces the price, then he attracts all the customers of the rival firm. And therefore, what happens is, therefore, the demand of the rivals will be equal to 0. So, the demand of the rivals will be equal to 0. So, what we can conclude is, because of this change in the price, the demand is reduced to 0 of his rivals. So, Therefore, in case of perfect competition, the cross elasticity of demand is infinity. So the cross elasticity of demand is infinity. So what we can conclude is the price change greatly affects the quantity demanded of rivals, and therefore the cross elasticity of demand is infinity. Now let's look at other condition. So the other case is that of pure monopoly. So in this case, we have cross elasticity of demand as 0. So when we have cross elasticity of demand as 0, we see that the demand is not at all affected by the price of other firms. So in case of pure monopoly, we have no close substitutes. Also, we have a single seller. So therefore what happens is, so there's going to be no change in the quantity demanded of a monopolist firm. So we have two extreme cases. So in case of, we have seen that in case of perfect competition, the cross elasticity of demand is infinity, and in case of pure monopoly, the cross elasticity of demand is 0. So what can we conclude? We can conclude that the cross elasticity of demand, or what we can say is the monopoly power is inversely related to cross elasticity of demand. So from these two cases, what we can say is the monopoly power is inversely related to cross elasticity of demand. So in this case, in case of pure monopoly, we have cross elasticity of demand as 0, and therefore the monopoly power will be infinity. Also, in case of perfect competition, the cross elasticity of demand is infinity, and therefore the monopoly power will be 0. So we have seen that the monopoly power is inversely related to cross elasticity of demand according to Triffin's. Whereas we have seen that in case of Lerner's index of monopoly power, the monopoly power was inversely related to price elasticity of demand. Now coming on to criticisms. So coming on to criticism of cross elasticity of demand as a measure of monopoly power, which was given by Triffin. So firstly, the first condition states that the cross elasticity of demand of any perfectly competitive firm with any other firm is also 0. But what we have seen in our previous slide is that in case of pure monopoly, the cross elasticity of demand is 0, and therefore we have absolute monopoly power in case of pure monopoly. But what we can see is the cross elasticity of demand in case of perfectly competitive firm can also be 0. Now, why is it so? Let's say if a perfectly competitive firm lowers the price of his product, then he is obviously going to attract the customers of all the rival firms, and therefore what happens is when he tries to do so, now what does this condition state? let's say when a perfectly competitive firm tries to lower the price of his product, he is obviously going to attract the customers of his rival firm, but to do so, he needs to expand his output. He needs to increase his output. And to increase his output, when he is going to increase his output, obviously the marginal cost is going to rise. And when this happens, he cannot satisfy the additional demand that is caused by a reduction in the price of his product. So, in this way, when he lowers the price, he is not going to affect the sales of his rival firm. And we already know that in case of perfect competition, no firm is large enough to affect the sale of the rival firms. So, this is what the condition is. So, in this case, the cross elasticity will be 0 because when he tries to lower the price of his product, the sales of his rival firms are not going to change because when he expands the output, the marginal cost also increases and he is unable to satisfy this increasing demand. Now, the other criticism is the cross elasticity of demand for a product of a firm under perfect or pure competition is 0. Again, it's 0. But we have seen that in case of pure monopoly, only the cross elasticity of demand is 0. So now, the second condition states that the cross elasticity is 0. Now, why is it so? So, the product that he produces is homogeneous and it is perfect substitute to the product that other firms are producing. So, the effect of the change in price is going to get spread among a large number of firms because in case of perfect competition, we have large number of firms that are producing a homogeneous product. So, what we can conclude is in case of perfect competition, we have large number of firms and therefore the effect of change in price is going to get spread among a large number of firms so that the effect on any individual firm is going to be negligible or very, very small. So, in this case, therefore, the cross elasticity of demand is 0. So, we have seen how cross elasticity of demand as a measure of monopoly power differs from that of Lerner's index of monopoly power. Hope you like this video. For more such videos, do like and subscribe our channel. Thank you.